Welcome. I'm Reverend Mary Huber. This is the Community Chapel of Holistic Healing, and tonight's talk is on kindness. And we were founded, for those who are unaware of our existence in the past, we were founded in 1977 by Reverend Michelle Luzon, a mystic and channel for multidimensional consciousness. She was asked to put our organization in the Washington, D.C. area so that we would be a light for the nation's capital. And we have remained here. We are still doing our work, sending light out on behalf of the country and the elevation of consciousness, which is our mission to enlighten people and for them to evolve personally. And when we evolve, the world around us evolves as well. So we always begin with a recitation of the Faith, Hope, and Charity affirmations, which we call the three healers. So we'll begin. Oh, I'm sorry. The Buddha boys, I forgot. Let's do the peace prayer, which is always very important today. Well, I could begin with the three healers. The faith affirmation. I believe in the spiritual existence of myself as a perfect image of the divine creator. In this reflection that is my physical embodiment, I have faith in the supreme guidance of my soul, for my balance, needs, and opportunities. Outside of myself, there are also perfect images, and nothing can delude my thinking otherwise. The hope affirmation, acknowledging my faith in the omnipresence of my divinity. I hope for realization, awareness, and acknowledgement of the existence of the great I am within myself. And the charity affirmation, in understanding faith and knowing hope, I pledge my actions, my desires, and my thoughts to the performances of myself on the physical planes of the earth, to honor, to love, and to enlighten all that is a reflection of the divine outside myself, so that my perfection is imaged back to my creator. So help me God. Divine Creator, we ask that the light of highest awareness fill the minds and hearts of those who are open to your light. We ask that they be a... Okay. Okay. Well, why don't we skip that? Doesn't want to
sorry, everyone.
Doesn't want to play tonight. So, but we do pray for peace every Thursday night very intensely. And this is a prayer for peace here, which we are very attentive to.
So sorry.
No, it happens. Believe me. We understand that. Yes. So tonight, the topic is kindness, and I will acknowledge this. When I asked Elizabeth, I wondered, were there any topics that she thinks we could present that would be useful today. And she was the one who said, why don't you do something on kindness? So I thank Elizabeth Good for that, to bring that forward, because that is the most important in the world that we are living in. And it's becoming more and more evident every day how important that is. So kindness is actually an action that we take a behavior that's marked by generosity and concern for others without ever expecting anything in return. And that act has profound meaning to us spiritually. It is a fundamental attribute of humanity in us when we allow it to come through, and it permeates it's for the whole human family. It's in every nationality and every place on the planet. They acknowledge this in their cultures in some manner, shape, or form. And probably the most common phrase that we have heard around this topic is about walking a mile in another's shoes to see, how they truly are, so that we can relate to them, so that we don't pass people by and miss the opportunity to have experience of giving ourselves in kindness. So that phrase, which I was taught as it was being presented to me, was supposed to have come from Native Americans. When I first looked it up, it turned out that everybody and their uncle across the world was claiming it that as theirs. And it is one of those kind of statements that probably, in every statement, this has been stated before, but it's in our culture mainly because of a poem that was penned by Mary T. Lathrop in 1895. Now, Mary T. Lathrop was a minister, Christian minister, who was also into the temperance era, and she was into women's rights kind of thing, but she was very active in helping lesser people with lesser opportunities in life. She apparently lived near a reservation, a Native American reservation, and she served them in so many ways because of her ministerial work. She worked with them, and when she penned this, the title of it originally was Judge Softly, and I'll just do a few of the stanzas here. It says, "Pray, don't find fault with the man that limps or stumbles along the road, unless you have worn the moccasins he wears or stumbled beneath the same load. There may be tears in his soles that hurt, though hidden away from view. The burden he bears, placed on your back, may cause you to stumble too. Don't sneer at the man who is down today unless you have felt the same blow that caused his fall or felt the shame that only the fallen can know." So I'm going to skip a few of the phrases. Just walk a mile in his moccasins before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. If just for 1 hour you could find a way to see through his eyes instead of your own muse, I believe you'd be surprised to see that you've been blind and narrow-minded, even unkind. There are people on reservations and in the ghettos who have so little hope and too many worry on their minds. So the poem goes on more than this. It was a lovely poem that was created by her. But it could be very possible that she did hear while she was on the reservation any number of stories, and it could have influenced her to put this into motion. Because one thing I do know about human creativity is that we kind of bank off of each other. When somebody does something, we get a spark of an idea based on somebody else's, and we go forward with something that has stimulated us to create something on our own. So it is an interesting journey that we all have in life, that we have a creative spirit that comes with us from spirit. Because if you remember Michelle's teachings, those of you who have been taught by her, that the creativity is the aspect of the soul that is to be expressed in this lifetime. And that is why we have freedom of choice, that we want to develop ourselves as a free agent in this world who is creatively producing something in the world that is useful or beautiful and helpful, that goes out into the world and creates an environment where it is a better world for us, for the world, because we're in it, because we're doing these things. And the kindness that comes from people is an example of that kind of creativity as well, because and it's sensitivity too. And we develop a lot of that along the way when you're studying metaphysics, when you're studying how to bring yourself into alignment with your higher spirit. There's sensitivity that's developed to spirit within. And as you're developing your own relationship to God within yourself, the sensitivity that comes from that has an outlet on outside of yourself, so that you not only are sensitive to your own needs, which you must be, by the way, because that's requirement for your personal development. But once you understand that, you can be sensitive to others, and the sensitivity that you can pick up what should, where can I express kindness? There is a quote by a number of quotes by any number of famous people. George Sand said, she lived back in the 1800s, guard well within yourself that treasure, kindness. Know how to give without hesitation, how to lose without regret, how to acquire without meanness. And George Sand, as you know, was the woman this was her pen name, a French woman who, I think her name was, her last name was Le Pen, and she was the granddaughter of a very famous Madame de Pen in the 1700s, which was very famous in the French aristocracy and was well known to Voltaire, who has called her the most beautiful. Uh, he had a phrase for her that was about her beauty. When her granddaughter came along, she was not known for that. She was known to be very a different person, female in the world, who always dressed like a man, who had child, was married, but she preferred that kind of garb. So she was highly criticized, but she was one of the most effective writers of her time. And she was well known all over the world, the known world at that time of the who were expressing that, particularly in Europe. She was very well known in Europe, and that's a interesting person to begin with. But she was quite aware of the varieties of life that come to you, and knew how important kindness was when it came to her personal life. So that ability to be able to relate to another human being at a very it doesn't have to be very profound level. It can be a very simple thing, because Albert Schweitzer said constant kindness can accomplish much. As the sun makes ice melt, kindness causes misunderstanding, mistrust, and hostility to evaporate. It creates an environment around the community in which we are living, which will benefit everyone, so that every little, Mahatma Gandhi said, the simplest acts of kindness are by far more powerful even than 1,000 heads bowing in prayer. That's pretty profound for him to have said that. But of course, 1,000 heads bowing in prayer, you'd have to define how dedicated those people were, etc., to their prayer. But kindness all by itself, a simple, simple thing that can be meaningful, so meaningful to another person. And it usually is, by the way, it usually is quite important to them. Back in the Bible, we're going to bring up the story of the Good Samaritan and the kindness that was expressed to the man who was going from Jerusalem to Jericho and was set upon by thieves and robbers and beat him to an inch of his life. And there were three people who went along the road. This is the parable that was said by Jesus because he was making a big point here. And the first one was a Pharisee who really didn't, have any heart in there because that's what Pharisees were. They're very learned, very exacting, very can be even cruel in their adherence to a law of the time, but really didn't understand anything more than that. They didn't have the heart. Then another man who was very similar to that also went by the man who was lying by the side of the road, but the Samaritan, who was one of the people who was sort of looked down upon by the communities at the time because the Jewish community didn't like to have other people who had what they called uh, hedonistic or kind of things that laws and how they conducted themselves spiritually. I would get the sense that the people who were intermarrying in this group, who were the Samaritans, were a combination of the Jewish and the other people who had these other ideas. And I'm thinking they're more like the earth-based religions who had that kind of an understanding. There was a mixture, and those people were not looked upon so well. However, they were the ones who were more open to being kind, and that they took the man in, and not only took them home and made sure that the man was taken care of, but also made sure he did well in life. So that's kind of a larger example, but Jesus certainly made the point that of the need for us to be kind to each other and to take care of one another in any way that we can so that we can bring the goodness of our hearts and our souls forward. It's so important that we keep our own sense of how we can respond. Now, once an individual opens themselves and becomes enlightened, you open yourself to spirit, the understandings that you become involved with, your understandings of this makes you so sensitive that when you look outside of self, you can see opportunities much more easily. And it doesn't have to be anything big and grand. There are always people who have been, and it happened to me once too, but this is very common that you're in a grocery line, and if you have been meaning to pay, this was in older days before the cards, with cash, and if you were just short a few cents or less than $1 kind of thing, and you overestimate, you're trying to figure out how to send something back so that you could have the money to pay for the other things, that there are people who are standing behind you saying, listen, I can make that up, don't worry about it. I was short I think 12 cents or something one time under those circumstances. But when you go into these, like Reader's Digest stories, I used to love Reader's Digest for their ability to bring so much forward in stories that people would share, and it was so wonderful to be able to see positive stories of people helping each other in life or just what was going on in their life. So those kind of things happen. And there's a lady who was in one of these stories from Reader's Digest. She said I forgot about the rule preventing liquids of any carry-on luggage. So when I hit security at the airport, I had to give up all of my painting supplies. And when I returned a week later, an attendant was at the baggage area with my paints. Not only had he kept them for me, but he looked up my return date and made sure that he was there to meet me. And the title of the story is Color Me Amazed. But this is, there are very interesting stories that come around because of the how kind people are that you don't expect them to be. And I'm going to tell one for myself that this is, I guess it sounds silly, but I have difficulty, a great deal of difficulty bringing my groceries into the house. Once I get them in the car, I'm fine. But then getting them out of the car and into the place, it's hard for me to do that, and it's hard for me to walk any great distance. And so one particular spot out front is really important to me. And if somebody else is in the spot, then I have to struggle to get everything inside. And the one day there a young couple young men, they're two young men with a lovely car. They come to visit somebody a lot, and they had pulled in just ahead of me and into their area, and they took the spot. Like they had been taking that spot a lot. And I thought, gee, there are a lot of other spots. Why haven't they taken other spots? So I parked a little bit down and I was going in. Now they saw me, but they didn't say, can I help you with your groceries? They just left. And so when they left, I was able to repark, and then I would have the better spot there and there. But the next time they came to visit, that spot was open, and they chose a spot down the way so that I would have that spot when I came back. And I thought, gee, I didn't think that they were even looking. It really is amazing when you find that there are people who are much more aware than you think they are, because these are just a couple of young men. I don't know who they are, what they believe in, and probably thought that they weren't that observant, but that was a lovely thing. And I thought that was one of the highlights of my day. I can't tell you how wonderful it made me feel, not because I had the space and I could get in, but it was the thought that they were thinking of me, and we are total strangers. So that kind of fit in with the lesson of kindness that we were talking about, and for this week. I like to look at Mark Twain. I love to go and look for quotes by Mark Twain. I just think he was great. Um, and one of his quotes was, "Kindness is a language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see." And I thought, oh, that's is how profound it is when we express our divine nature through the heart that is reaching out into the world. The activity of us reaching out into the world surely spreads more light than anything we can possibly imagine, just by really simple acts of kindness. There's I think a few years ago there was more common expression called "pay it forward." And that was the same idea. I hear, no, I don't want anything in return for this kindness. Just, you do something nice now for somebody, which was a nice, I don't hear that as much anymore. I guess that there's times where the language goes through cycles where we're more commonly referring to certain things at certain times than others. But pay it forward wasn't, did have a big presence, that statement. And people were much more aware then because of that statement, I think, when it came to the human race and how that all of that wonderful activity of kindness can be such a help. I think if more people today could get involved in the understanding of the need and how important kindness does, it does so much more for the individual who's giving it as much as it's doing for the person who's receiving it. It's a very important part of our spiritual development. And I think if humanity at large could be more aware that when you are in spirit and you have all that love and the intercooperation and everything that goes on in spirit, you want to bring that into the world. So it's needs to be understood, I think, by everyone, every human being on the planet, that when you step into the physical form of the infant, that moment that you are energizing that you are now becoming the human, you are creating a sacred vessel. And the sacred vessel of your body that is sacred, once the spirit that comes in from the higher creative realms, higher creative consciousness is your true nature. Once that true nature comes in, because of it, it enlivens not only animates the form, it blesses it. It blesses us to the point where we forget in our day-to-day world and the knocks and bumps that we take and such, you kind of forget that it is a sacred vessel that we're in. We have made it so. Our higher creative consciousness made it so. And so it's important that we remember that. Remember to bring in as much as we can every day into our known world, that once we become the human, that we don't forget where we came from, that we are here to express the best of ourselves. And certainly the best of ourselves is to be kind to one another and to just stay in the kingdom of heaven. Just bring it with you, elevate everything around you so that we can become the peaceful, loving people in the world that we are meant to be. I put this down and as a quote. I love Matthew for some reason. Every time I try to express something, it's always Matthew. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 to 20, it says, "Do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." And it's the idea that the law of the universe, it's the reciprocity, the giving. As you give, so you receive. The laws that Jesus came to exhibit as the true meaning for the world, and how to bring the law into the daily life and be that law. You're the fulfillment of the law. We are all meant to be the fulfillment of the law. And once we understand that, we can get a better grasp of really where the kingdom of heaven is, how to keep it here. We are meant to bring heaven into the earth and energize everything around us to elevate it and to bring that blessing that we are bringing now in day to day. The world today doesn't suddenly seem so much to be that kind of world, but we are constantly being told, I am constantly being told, it's do not look at this, the evidence that you think you're seeing. We are seeing the end point. We have this, it's going to work, but it has to work out through human decisions and human actions. And so the human action that I believe would be the greatest thing would be to elevate everything by being kind, to being all of the things that are in the Christ consciousness. Kindness is one of the characteristics that when we exhibit that, that is of the Christ, that is of the element of the Christ within us that's being expressed. And every time we express elements of the Christ, the kind of qualities that Christ has in that consciousness, we become more of the Christ, which is certainly where we are all really want to go. But the many different stories. And I think the one story I liked a lot was, it was called 21 Apples for Max. When this lady's grandson became 21, she decided that on his 21st birthday to give him something special. So she took out 21 $10 bills from the bank and bought 21 apples. And when she came home, she separated these out into little gift packages, and she went out and she found different people in the community who were either homeless or in need in some way, or seemed to be very stressed and needed a lift. And she said to them, "Today is my grandson's 21st birthday, and he asked me to give a gift to you and to help you, and I would like you to help me celebrate it with him." And she would hand them a $10 bill and an apple. And she went around until all of that they were all given out. And so many people were touched by this that they all, every time that they would know where to put that greeting, they would all be saying, "Happy birthday, Max." Max had many greetings from people he didn't know when they pointed out who he was in the town, because they had been gifted in a very special way. So that was pretty unique, of a very creative way of giving of self, of your means to others. That didn't require a lot, but it did require the heart to reach out and to be sensitive to the people who really truly needed a pickup in their life. Anyway, I thought I'd open the floor now. If anybody have anything you wanted to share about, a kindness that you have either given or received. It's nice for both.
Hey, Mary, I'm lucky because I knew this topic was coming. So I've been sitting here thinking about how many times I've received acts of kindness, and a couple really stood out to me. The most recent one, maybe not most recent, but very, very recent, was Tuesday. Um, you guys probably remember my sister and I do an outreach ministry for the homeless called The Feed. And the feedsd.org provides showers for the homeless, partnering with one of our neighboring churches, the Seventh-day Adventist Church of South Bay. And for some reason, our regular volunteers couldn't make it. So the driver even had to leave, and then it was just me and the showers, and I'm usually giving out the toiletry bags and the towels and stuff. So so I said, "That's okay, I can do it. I can clean the showers and manage the supplies." So I start cleaning, and one of the homeless guys came up and he said, "Can I help?" And I said, "Well, absolutely." Right. well, he's like, I'm waiting for my shower. I might as well be helpful, right? And I thought, wow, most of our clients are, you know, having trouble just keeping it together, being able to, wait in line or get some of the other services that we provide while they're waiting. And this guy really stepped up. He really he did all the cleaning of all the showers. Um, he got his shower and then went immediately into cleaning. Um, and it was just really amazing. I was very thankful. I was praying for help, right? And he stepped up right out of line. So um that was a really, really recent one, and it was just beautiful to see. We have a lot of our volunteers that have come from the streets, um, giving back, so that was beautiful and, really helped me out. Um, One of the other ones that I was thinking of was, um, um, when my daughter was having a rough time and, I was trying to work 3 jobs. One of her friends and her mother, um, held a garage sale, and I don't know if any of you have had the awful experiences that I've had with garage sales, but I swore to never do one again. And, um, and they held a garage sale, and, they had some leftover stuff from the garage sale and they brought them over, like coats and things that we really needed. And then she hands me an envelope and it's all the money that they raised from the garage sale. And she gave it to us. She
Wow.
was like, this was the best use of our money that we could think of. So those are my two. One was more recent, but the other one was just so, so heartfelt and so kind. And it was at a really important time in my life where I really needed help. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'll let anybody else share if they want.
Yeah. Anybody else have an idea that you've maybe not yourself personally, maybe it happened to your family or
Yeah,
friends?
I'd like to share, Mary.
Hmm.
One of the things in Kairos that we do every weekend is on Saturday night, we have, and actually there's a progression through the weekend, but on Saturday night, we arrive at a forgiveness ceremony. And it's basically the equivalent of the burning bowl that we used to do, except, of course, matches in the prison are not allowed. And so what we do is we use rice paper and water tubs, and people write on the rice paper all the people that they need to forgive, beginning, of course, with themselves. And we start that in the morning and we say this, there's more paper available in case you lose it or in case that you need more. And inevitably, there are people who are asking for more. And in the evening, we go through kind of a prayerful sort of thing, and then people get up and they actually deposit the slips of paper in the bowls of water. There's two of them, and there are people with these big wooden spoons stirring it, and people will stand there and watch their forgiveness slip evaporate into the water. And that goes on and that's effective. But beyond that, We then separate ourselves from the people who are on the weekend. And at that point, each of the participants, the residents of the prison, who normally receive a dozen cookies every night, are given 2 dozen. One for themselves and another one to the person they most need to forgive. The stories that come back are incredible. There have been murders that have not been murders because of these cookies. People have had contracts to kill somebody and they give cookies instead. It is powerful, incredibly powerful, how incredible kindness really is.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. Goodness. Well, anybody else have a story? I don't. That's a hard act to follow, these two. Well, I'm sure you all have something that would come to mind a bit later, but because I think with kindness, when you become this kind person, you do it so often you don't remember to say anything about it because it's a way of life for you. And I kind of think that's really where a lot of y'all are. And yeah, that sometimes it's more dramatic than other times, but the small things that you do all the time that are so rich and rewarding to others are also for yourself. It says, Parama Hasana, well, we'll remember how to pronounce it in some time. Yogananda said, be kind to others so you may learn the secret of being kind to yourself. So again, it's a reminder that we have, it's a two-way street. It's nothing that is ever lost for us. It's gained by others. It's gained by us. And before we go into meditation, I want to share the last little quote by Mark Twain. And it's one of his longer one, and it's a little bit rhyming. He said, a little more kindness, a little less speed, a little more giving, a little less greed, a little more smile, a little less frown, a little less kicking a man when he's down, a little more we, a little less I, a little more laugh, a little less cry, a little more flowers on the pathway of life, and fewer on graves at the end of the strife. Love that man. Well, we will go into meditation now. And what I'd like to do is, it's important that you get on to an understanding of just really relaxing here, really, really, really relaxing, going with this kind of the energy of this, and using your best imagination, because this is what would be required to connect with this. So you are seated and relaxing more and more in your chair where you are, and taking in deep breaths. Bring in light now to the top of your head. Breathe it in and take it into your heart. And on the exhalation, send it into every part of your body. It's important. Breathing in the light and sending that out. breathing it in through the top of your head, putting it in your heart, and then exhaling it to the best imagination that you have. See it flowing. See it running along the vessels in your body. See the light, it's liquid light, running everywhere, entering cells everywhere. See it happening. Do that to the best of your ability. Keep it moving, keep it moving through you. This is very, very important as part of this. And before we go in thoroughly and enter, we will say the prayer that the Edgar Casey Foundation uses prior to their meditation. Father, as I open myself to the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, beauty, and might, I throw myself upon the protection found in the thought of the Christ. Now we are open, we are protected, and as you're seated where you are, just feel the presence of the chair and your feet firmly on the ground, and you are grounded and protected. And now, begin to think about place where you can find a lot of tranquility. Just picture that place. Go there as you can. Remember it. It's filled with such peace and tranquility that it would be good for you along the way to always remember this place. In this peaceful, tranquil place, there is tremendous harmony. You find the harmony in the nature around you. You find the harmony that exists in the sounds you hear. You find everything is in divine accord, flowing, easily flowing. This place has great promise. It is the place of your deepest imagination. And here you see that everything is compatible. It is always, everywhere you look, if you are engaged with other people, there are smiles, there are agreements. You look at the atmosphere and of everything around you, it has great symmetry. See the symmetry. Find it there in this imaginary or real place that you have visited. But could you envision something finer and higher and more like the peaceful home you have in spirit? There you have such equilibrium. Find the equilibrium that you have when you're in your God-centered place, your heavenly home. You might find there is a great symphony of harmony, musical tones that help to further create an equilibrium. A balance. Here you know that everything is in divine order. The symmetry, the harmony, and the balance existing always within this place, within yourself, is a real experience. The gift of the angels while we are on earth is to help us to achieve that. And as we pray for more harmony and understanding all around, we become lifted and joyful in our daily life. Breathe in this harmony. If the harmony was light and color, breathe it in and bring it into your heart and make sure it's encased there. Bring in that sense that all is well. That your divine self is in charge. And as this feeling and acknowledgement of harmony and peace and tranquility and all that is balanced and in perfect order. You claim it now for yourself, for the rest of this embodiment, and for any other embodiments you have on all levels in which you exist. Claim it as a way of life, that nothing can shake you, nothing can threaten you to leave this experience. This is your protection. This is your place where you and God within you are in absolute alignment. Everything in your life will flow from this center, and it will be for your highest good. And now, accompanied by your angelic companions who are with you at all times, you bring that back with you, claiming it always for yourself in every single moment of your life. And those angelic beings who know this is your desire, your command, will always bring this to you as you relax in your daily life, simply by taking deep breaths. And knowing that this center of your own being has brightened and blessed this moment, you are now being released to come back into the outer world of your daily life with the blessings of so many higher beings who want your best, who always keep you in mind to bring the best to you. So as you are now reintegrating, you are also experiencing the peace that you have found. And that will stay with you this week and heal you at every level. And when you're ready, open your eyes and rejoin. And now we'll end with our reminder that we do have a website, ccwh.com, and we would ask if you can go to our PayPal button and please share what you can with us and help us to remain active in the light realms of the physical plane so that we can bring as much light to the world as possible. And so in anticipation of this offering, the blessing that you are giving us, we will say the offering prayer. Father, Mother God, you are the giver of every good and perfect gift. Give us grateful hearts that we may share freely with others all you have given us. Amen. And now join hands in spirit. We will have our ending, traditional ending to our chapel. Let there be peace on earth.